बरोबर
You are
नेट
right.
कनेक्शन देखो.
Hello Pranavi, we are live on YouTube. Can you just drop in a request on Instagram as well? Do you have an option? Yes. Just a minute, we do have your request. Can you confirm what you can see from there?
Give it a minute.
Pranavi? Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes. Cool. So, hello everyone. Thank you for joining in here today with us. Today we have with us Pranavi and I am Anuya. I'm the founder of UplyPsych and Pranavi is a trainee psychologist at UplyPsych. Today we have gathered here for a small chit chat on cognitive distortions. So, uh, today we are going to dive into this topic that plays quite a huge role in our life in topics of how we think, feel, and act. Cognitive distortions are something that usually come into the picture when you're feeling stuck in a negative thought pattern, and when that happens, if you ever feel that you're stuck in kind of a negative thought pattern, it's usually not something that only you are facing. So, cognitive distortions are at the heart of it, and you're not alone in feeling that way. So, today we are going to explore what these cognitive distortions are, what different styles of thinking are there, and how they in totality influence the way we think. So, I am, yes, Pranavi, before we dive into the topic, is there something that you want to add up?
Yes, ma'am. I feel cognitive distortions are really important for people to recognize because they happen unconsciously and one should be aware of how they are thinking and what pattern of thinking they are following. So it's a really good topic to explore.
Right, that's definitely right. So, cognitive distortions are basically biased or irrational thought patterns that usually cloud our judgments and the perception or the outlook that we have towards our daily life situations. So, they act as mental filters and they play a role in how we make sense of the world, and also play a role in distorting at times how we interpret the world, ourselves, or the situations that happen around us. So everyone experiences these cognitive distortions from time to time. But what happens is, when these cognitive distortions become a habit, that is when you can say that these are becoming a little problematic for a person, their mental health and their well-being. So that is what basically these cognitive distortions are, and that is what they do to you. But another major question that people come up with is, when actually do these cognitive distortions show up? So, cognitive distortions often come up when we are either stressed, anxious, or overwhelmed emotionally. That is when we don't have a lot of control over how we are thinking, which is when we need these filters the most. So, our brain tries to make sense of complex and distressing situations very quickly without putting a lot of effort into it, and in doing so, it takes mental shortcuts. So, these cognitive distortions are not necessarily something bad just because it's a shortcut, but when they stop being helpful to a person is when they can lead us to inaccurate perceptions about world, ourselves, and others, and also make us come at conclusions that are overly negative. So that is why we do not put them in a completely positive or a completely negative line of action, but they might push us a lot of times in stress to take out negative conclusions about things and how they are working. They also become more prevalent when we are exposed to longer periods of negative thinking or a lot of challenges in life. So that is usually when these cognitive distortions show up. Now, having talked about what these cognitive distortions are and when they usually show up, it's also important to understand how these cognitive distortions are influencing the way we think. So, the way we process our information is definitely directly affected by these cognitive distortions. They shape how we view ourselves, what I am to me, and what I think others think of me. It shapes about my outlook about the relationships that I have and the world around me. So, for example, if we consistently think in a distorted way or a way that is not helpful to us, we might start seeing ourselves or the world around us in negative patterns, in a place where these negative patterns don't actually exist. So when this happens, I start feeling inadequate. I start questioning myself despite having evidence that ये ऐसा नहीं होगा. This might not be the case. Even then, I start looking at myself in a negative light or questioning myself. Now, what happens when I am used to, or when I am on an autopilot to go back to this thinking? It leads to mental health issues, and it underlies a lot of serious mental health conditions like depression, anxiety, having a low self esteem. So, cognitive distortions form the root of all of these issues, and it definitely affects how we make decisions, how we interact with others, and how we are approaching a stress that we see in our life. So, all in all, having discussed all of this, it has a lot of impact on our mental health, the cognitive distortions. So, when we let cognitive distortions take control over the way we are thinking, they contribute to a combined feeling of hopelessness or helplessness, or the worst case scenario, both of them together. So, when I use a lot of cognitive distortions, I start feeling helpless and hopeless, and they create a cycle of negative thoughts. Now, negative thoughts are there, so it is going to culminate into negative emotions, which further goes and becomes a part of our life. So, they are reinforcing this distorted thinking more and more, and breaking this kind of a cycle whenever it is formed is very important. So, understanding these cognitive distortions, given all the impact that it has on our life, on our selves, on our mental well being, it is very important that we control these cognitive distortions rather than letting them control us or ourselves and our thinking. So, knowing what these cognitive distortions are is the first step to challenge these cognitive distortions and change these cognitive distortions. So, now from this point ahead, we are going to give the stage to Pranavi and we are going to explore certain cognitive distortions with her that we are more frequently using in our everyday life. Yes, Pranavi, over to you. I would also like you to add on to something if I would have missed out.
No, ma'am, I think you have covered very briefly about what these cognitive distortions are. And yes, like you said, we will discover a few common cognitive distortions.
Yes, there's a power cut, but we can hear you fine. Pranavi, I think there's a little echo from your end also. So if there's another device around, can you just mute it?
Too much distortion.
We'll just wait for a few minutes to join with Pranavi. Pranavi, I've gotten your request. I think it's just taking time to process it.
Yes.
Yes. Can you just
Am I
say
audible, ma'am?
yes? And the echo is much better, so we can't hear the buffering. Yes. So we were talking about cognitive distortions.
Type of.
Yes, the
Yes.
types.
So, like I was saying, they are very important for a person to identify, and there are quite a few of them. But today we're going to discuss common cognitive distortions that we see. So, to start with, we have all or nothing thinking. I'm sure few of you have heard about it. It's also called black and white thinking or dichotomous thinking. So in this, you basically think in extremes, or you categorize people, experiences, choices that you make in a polarized categories, either all good or all bad, which is the name in black or white. So there is no middle point in this thinking. You don't see the gray shades of it. You categorize it in one. So this type of thinking could lead to anxiety, frustration, hopelessness, as you mentioned earlier. So for an example, you had a psychology test and you've given it like bad. We all have bad tests. Let's say you have messed up a test and now you think that I'm never going to be able to become a good therapist. So you have categorized yourself as a bad therapist because of one test. So that is nothing but all or nothing thinking that we do. So this could happen in various contexts as well. So moving on, we have approval seeking, another cognitive distortion, where you want approval from others, or you validate from others all the time, and you want to be loved all the time from others. If not, you think that nothing is going according to me, and you compromise on your needs in order to get those approvals from others. So, to give a very relatable example, if you want to get a hair style that you've been wanting to get from a long time, but you're not sure whether it'll look good on you or not. So instead of taking your own opinion, you will only get a hairstyle if all of your friends will approve. So you're compromising your needs for their approval. That is nothing but approval seeking.
It's also very funny because
So
even after the haircut, you go on asking people, how am I looking? How am I looking? Is it going well?
yes,
Yeah,
yes, it's exactly that. And you don't get it unless all of your friends approve. So you always want the validation from the people around you.
right.
This cognitive distortion could lead to fear of rejection or self-doubt and indecisiveness because it makes your decisions feels difficult to do. Like you won't be able to make independently your decisions. So that is approval seeking. Moving on, we have comparison. I think we all heard that word. A lot of times in our life, we compare with others. So the name says itself, it's constantly comparing yourself with others based on one single event or a little information that you have. And you either feel superior or inferior after comparing to them. So, for example, you see a therapist explaining a particular therapeutic technique, and you feel that I could have explained much better than him or her because I am more knowledgeable and I have more skill. So I could have easily done that better. So you are comparing yourself with that therapist
Are
based on
you
that one
talking?
explanation.
Are you talking about a lot of mental health videos that we have flooding in quite recently on the Instagram?
Yes, ma'am, you got me.
Yes, that's very common, I
So
would agree.
we another common example that I could give for this is a lot of content creators are there on Instagram, and a lot of trends are going on Instagram. Every month a new trend comes up. So you often see those trends and you see कि यार मैं तो बहुत अच्छा कर लेती हूँ इससे better because I'm a pro at it or I have good skills, I have good camera or whatever. So you compare yourselves with others constantly and you feel superior because you are better than that. So that is comparison. And the next one would be a mixture of two cognitive distortions, which is jumping to conclusions and overgeneralization. Again, a very common one that we follow. So you draw a conclusion based on one event and you negatively interpret that event, which is very close to overgeneralizing, where you generalize that negative event widely by using words like always, never, everyone, all the time, etc. So I have a very good example for this. It says that my mother always sends me to go to grocery shopping instead of my sister because I think she likes my sister more. So you see what I've done here is I have overgeneralized that my mother always makes me go to the grocery shopping, and I jumped to a conclusion on my belief that she likes my sister more than me. So there is a mixture of two cognitive distortions clashing and a belief that is forming it.
That's a very relatable example of my explanation of how cognitive distortion are affecting our relationships, and sibling rivalry, I think, tops the list.
That's the best one to explain.
Yes.
So moving on, we have perfectionism, another very common cognitive disorder. So everyone wants to be perfect or they want to do certain things in a perfect way. So you want yourself to perfect and others to be perfect all the time. And if it doesn't happen, you get upset. Or if something that doesn't go according to your expectations, you will get upset. Even when the event is not important that much, you still get upset because you want that to be in a very perfect way. A common example that most students will relate is when a professor gives you a group assignment. You want the members in your group to only follow a particular format that you give. And if one of them also doesn't follow it, you get upset and you just don't like it at all. So that is perfectionism. The next one is personalization. So in personalization, you see yourself as the cause of something negative happened, even though that event is not entirely responsible by you, um, or that it is not related to you at all. You take the blame upon yourself and you see it has happened because of you. So that is personalization. Continuing the example to the group assignment. So you submitted your assignment and you've gotten a bad review from your prof. So you take that entire review upon yourself. Like you see that कि ये मेरे वजह से हुआ है, and then you take all the blame and you think to yourself कि I should have put more efforts, I should have overseen all the stuff that I'm putting out. So even though there are other people in the group involved which are equally responsible, you take the entire blame upon yourself. So that is personalization distortion that people usually do. So the last one would be should statements. I think people should know about this cognitive distortion. That's what I have done right now. I have used two. So to explain this, we try to motivate ourselves by using the words should, shouldn't, must, ought, and we try to put these words between our sentences. So when we are putting this, we are expecting something. This can be directed towards ourselves and towards others as well. So you expect from yourself that I should do this, or you expect from others that he or she should have done this. So usually with this distortion, there are emotional consequences involved. So it could be leading to guilt or frustration or anything because you are applying the word should or shouldn't or must or ought, like I said. So now I will ask everyone to sit and reflect on all the should statements that you people follow every day, and let's check how much those statements are we using.
Definitely. I think that was a very nice thought that you planted for everyone. Meanwhile, if there are any questions, we'll be happy to take it. So, I think you very rightly mentioned about the should statements, Pranavi. It does come up with a lot of emotional consequences that I should be doing everything perfectly. I, let's say, at a stage for a student, I should know this particular thing. So if at all you do not know that particular concept, you don't give yourself the scope and the space to be wrong. So it definitely comes up with a lot of doubts and questions about yourself, and again then the cycle that we mentioned earlier starts up, that will I be able to do it, am I even good enough to do it. So it does naturally get all these thoughts. It was lovely to know all of these cognitive distortions from you, and it was also very amazing that you have collated all these examples from the real life, from different parts. Let's say the relationship, you beautifully covered the student life also, and how student life to a professional life transition is there. So all of these examples I think are very sensible, that I can relate to it from my life. So, yes, we do have a question. We will take that up before we can end the session.
Yes.
So, yes, we have a question that asks, what are some more cognitive distortions other than these ones? Do you want to take that up?
I have a yes, I have a few of them, and if I miss anything, please continue.
Yes.
So other than these, we have labeling, we have rationalizing, um, uh, and what about you? Do you have anything in mind?
No, I think that's enough for right now. We can definitely keep doing more of these sessions with more distortions and everything, but for now, this starter kit, like the first step, is good enough for us to take an assessment of what all are we using in our daily lives.
Sure, I would agree to it.
Yes, I don't think there are any more questions. So, are there any parting thoughts that you have or any message that you want to give out before we end the session?
A small message is that please identify your cognitive distortions and try to see what all pattern of thinking that you're following. And I think it's really helpful. It has been helpful to me, and it was lovely speaking on this topic. I wanted to do this for some time, so thank you so much for letting me do it.
Pranavi, we have one more question. We'll take that before we finally end this. So, there's a comment which says that I relate to the perfectionism and I feel like I seek external validation a lot. I want to control it, but I cannot control it. So, may I know how to control it? Do you want to take that up or should I go ahead?
You can go ahead.
Yes, so like we had mentioned towards the end of my part that the first step towards the cognitive distortions could be to acknowledge them. So when we start to say that I feel like I seek external validation or I relate to the perfectionism part, the first step has been achieved, that I know कि I have a tendency to do that. Now the tricky part about controlling this will come where you know you're doing something but that is not really giving you happiness, or you're not doing it totally out of your will. मैं ये करूँगी तो so and so person will be happy, or so and so person expects this from me, is the thought. Or even when you talk about perfectionism, I am doing this because it gives me acceptance from some person or some place. That is where it is having a little toll on my mental well-being. कि maybe आज I'm a little tired, so I want my room to stay messy, and there's nothing wrong in that. But if that perfectionism is pushing you towards getting up and washing the whole place around, washing your clothes, tidying your place at the cost of you not being fine, that is where you draw the line. So controlling, first step is of course acknowledging, and the next step is going to be, once I've acknowledged this and I know this is going to end up in a cycle, I take steps to stop this cycle or break this cycle. So that is your way of controlling it. Yes, there is one more comment that I got to realize my cognitive distortion and would want to control. Yes, I think so. We have addressed that here. That acknowledgement, breaking the cycle, and once you break the cycle, the next step in controlling will be forming a new cycle which makes you feel better. So rather than washing or cleaning so and so area, let's say my bookshelf, I love my books, so for me my bookshelf will be a go-to place where I have to clean it once in a while. But if I am not feeling up for it one day and I take a one day break, it's fine in that. So breaking a cycle and maybe shifting that to a newer cycle, that it's okay, I can do fine without obsessively cleaning my bookshelf on so and so date only, will be a step up on controlling it. Because earlier I used to have this key every first weekend of the month I'm going to clean my bookshelf. अगर वो नहीं होता था तो I would get cranky, I would get frustrated, but with time, once I acknowledge it, changing it कि ठीक है first weekend में नहीं हुआ, I might get time throughout the week, so I'll clean it at that time. So replacing the cycle becomes important. Anything you want to add up?
Really good example.
Thank you.
Nothing much, but I could relate to that book shelf example because I do love books and I have a whole shelf on it, so it's a good insight that I got.
Yes, so I don't think we have any more questions here. So let's end this session for today, and thanks a lot, Pranavi, for making out time for this one. It was lovely having you here, interacting with you, and listening to all the insights that you had.
Thank you, ma'am. It was my pleasure to do this. Thank you.
See you. Bye bye.
See you. Bye.